Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, SS454 LS6. I've had a lot of conversations about how to make a Chevelle or A-body or general muscle car handle good, and do you need to have an expensive pro touring setup to make that happen? Well, in my experience, in my opinion, the answer to that is no, you do not. Especially considering 95 to 99% of the muscle car owners out there will never take their car on an autocross or road course. And if you're like me, who prefers the more classic muscle car look with the 15-inch wheels and whatnot, well, you can have this setup and still have a relatively good handling car. But if you want to do the autocross, the road course, or any kind of competition, this will not be the most ideal setup. You will want to go to something more extreme. But if you like to just rip around on the highway or around town or maybe a twisty back road, this type of setup will be just fine. And if you haven't seen the video that I made about the suspension on the car, I'll post a link in the description. But we'll do a quick overview of that, and then I will prove to you that this type of setup and what I got going on here is a pretty good handling car in your typical handling situation. Regardless of suspension mods, I made sure to replace any worn out bushings or tie rod ends with Moog parts. Up front, I run SPC upper and lower control arms, Viking shocks, and the original coil springs, which when new were rated at 435 pounds. I have L&H aluminum tall spindles and steering arms. I also upgraded to a Hotchkiss 1 3/8 anti-roll bar and an AGR 12:1 fast ratio steering box. In the back, I run a Hellwig chassis mount anti-roll bar and Viking coilovers with 150-pound springs. Keep in mind, you do not need to run coilovers to improve handling. For street tires, I run worn-out Mickey Thompson Sportsman STs, 235/60 R15s up front, and 295/50 R15s in the back. The car is all steel with an iron big block Chevy and weighs over 3,900 pounds with me in it, so it's quite a heavy beast. So we'll go for a drive and I'll show you that this is a pretty good handling car for what it is. Again, it's not a race car, it's not going to have ultimate grip, but for your typical driving around, it does pretty good. transitions decently as well. And of course, we have to do an on-ramp to the highway. So as you can see, the car handles pretty good. I was going a lot faster than I normally would during a typical peppy drive, but I just wanted to show you that the car was capable of doing it without a really crazy suspension and without really sticky tires. So what does it take to have a car that handles good? Well, I thought about it in basically 3 stages. First, if you want a car that feels like it handles good, which this is important, a car that feels like it handles well versus a car that does handle well are not the same thing. I'm sure a lot of you guys that are into cars, or guys and gals, you've gone to a car show or whatever, and you ran up to some fella that says that he put a stage 2 handling package on his car or whatever, and it handles just as good as a brand new BMW or Corvette. Nah, probably not. Maybe it feels like that, but if you put it on a stopwatch, the brand new BMW or Corvette is very likely going to demolish it. So to get your car to feel like it handles well, get a fast ratio steering box and throw as much positive caster at it as you possibly can. That will make the steering feel quite a bit tighter, and it'll also make it much more reactive, which will obviously be a huge improvement in terms of feel, but the overall grip is not going to change really much at all. So the next step, if you want to reduce the amount of body roll the car has, increase the size of your sway bars, anti-roll bars, which honestly can give you a bit of a placebo effect. I know this because when I had the stock 1-inch bar on the front and no bar on the back, and I went to the big bars, just driving around, or at a bit of a peppy pace, so to speak, I really didn't feel any difference at all. The reason for that is you have to load the suspension for the sway bars to activate, because they're effectively torsion bars. One side goes up, the other side wants to resist it. So you have to load the suspension, and just driving around at slow speeds is not going to do that. If you're driving around a parking lot or whatever, and if you say that you can feel a night and day difference, it's pretty unlikely unless you had no bars on the car before. But nevertheless, it is one of the best bang for the bucks out there, and I do recommend them. The next thing you can do is go to a tall ball joint. You can also go with a good quality tubular upper control arm with built-in caster. And what you're doing is fixing the factory suspension geometry. A tall ball joint will effectively change your camber curve when the wheel goes into compression from a positive camber, the way it was done factory, which is awful, to a negative camber, which is what you want. A tall lower ball joint will effectively lower the ride height at the front by about 1/2 inch, but also change the geometry of your steering arm so you'll have a reduction in bump steer. All of these are a good thing. And what you're effectively doing overall is working the tire more correctly, which is ideal because the tires are what touches the road, so you want them to work as well as you can. So I highly recommend that. Do you need tubular lower control arms? No, you do not. Most of them out there are going to be heavier than the stock ones. Granted, they will be a lot stronger. The new ones will have built-in better bushings, but you can also change your bushings to Delrin or urethane bushings on the stock ones. Just make sure you have good ball joints. But they're not going to be a performance improvement by going to tubular lower control arms. So that will get you pretty much to the level that I have here. Now, if you want to start getting much faster, or you're going to be talking about races or whatever, you're going to need to start looking at increasing your spring rates, lowering the car down, and reducing the overall weight of the car, which is huge because weight is evil for handling. And of course, the heavier the car, the heavier the spring rate. And now you're starting to talk about, reduction in ride quality. If the car is really slammed down to the ground, you might have issues with, bottoming out and, scraping your exhaust because, the road has train tracks, potholes, whatever. So you run into a bunch of other problems. And of course, the one thing that's absolutely critical, regardless if it's a stock suspension car or a full-on race car, is the tires. It is by far the most important part to getting improved grip, because it's the only part that touches the road. If you have bad tires, it's never going to be good. If you have 15-inch wheels like I do, you're going to have a very limited selection. If you're running 17, 18s, or 19s, obviously a much better selection, much better tires. You can even go to these R-compound, semi-race tires, or even a full race tire if you want. But obviously that runs with, reduced tread wear, problems in wet weather, etc. So that's if you want to go to the extremes. The point of this video is to show you that for 9 out of 10 guys out there, you can get a decently handling car, especially around the driving that most of us do, since we're only pushing maybe 5, 6, maybe 7/10 of what the car can do. And it looks good, it handles good, and it's pretty inexpensive. So that's the point of this video. If you guys liked it, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos, and thanks for watching.